Hello, I'm Hope Logan. I am an actor on Bold and the Beautiful, and many people really love both me and our Bold and the Beautiful drama. So I've come here to share updates about my beloved Bold and the Beautiful. Everyone, please subscribe and support me. If you do, I will keep coming every day with new updates for you. In the ever-evolving world of the Bold and the Beautiful, the week of May 18th to 29, 2026 unfolds like a storm building over the glamorous yet volatile halls of Forrester Creations. Emotions are running dangerously high as Brooke Logan spirals into frustration after not getting her way, while Ridge Forrester refuses to bend to pressure. At the same time, Katie Logan finds herself second-guessing her own intentions, worried that her choices may ignite a devastating family conflict. Beneath the polished surface of high fashion and corporate power struggles, tensions are tightening like a wire ready to snap. Every decision this week carries emotional weight, and every alliance feels fragile. What begins as professional disagreements quickly turns into personal battles that threaten to reshape relationships inside the Logan and Forrester families. The drama intensifies on Monday, May 18th, when Finn Finnegan arrives at Forrester Creations with Hayes Forrester in tow, catching Steffi Forrester off guard in a moment that quickly becomes emotionally charged. Steffi opens up, venting her frustration over Brooke pushing Ridge to strip her of her co-CEO position, a move that feels deeply personal rather than professional. As the conversation unfolds, she also becomes aware of Zende Forrester's growing dissatisfaction as he feels sidelined in favor of RJ Forrester's privileged status. Meanwhile, Ridge finds himself directly in the line of fire as Brooke unleashes her fury over his refusal to demote Steffi, exposing the real issue simmering beneath the surface. Hope Logan's frustration over her unequal standing at Forrester Creations. Brooke's argument that both Hope and Steffi grew up around the company fuels her outrage, but Ridge remains unmoved, standing firm in his decision to protect Steffi's position despite Brooke's emotional pressure. Elsewhere, tensions ripple through younger relationships as Miss Dillon confronts Remy Price, demanding that he respect her boundaries and stay away to preserve her fragile friendship with Electra Forrester. Remy, however, is stunned and resentful to learn that Dillon and Electra have reconciled, dismissing Electra's outrage over his deepfake actions as overblown and insisting he is no threat. Dillon remains firm, warning him to keep his distance, though Remy counters with a manipulative condition, suggesting he will only disappear if Dillon convinces Deke Sharp to take him back. At the same time, Liam Spencer voices his concerns to Katie Logan and Bill Spencer, expressing that Hope's insistence on staying at Forrester Creations is a disaster waiting to happen. Bill echoes his frustration, insisting Hope belongs back with the Logans, away from what he sees as an outdated and toxic environment, while Hope remains determined to prove herself within the company, no matter the cost. By Tuesday, May 19th, Zende Forrester finds himself questioning his future at Forrester Creations, confronting feelings of undervaluation and creative stagnation. Whether speaking with Steffi or Carter Walton, Zende expresses frustration that his designs are being pushed aside, leaving him feeling like an afterthought despite his talent and legacy. Steffi tries to reassure him, urging patience and promising that his contributions will eventually be recognized, but the uncertainty lingers heavily in the air. Meanwhile, Taylor Hayes returns and immediately sees Brooke Logan in a far more troubling light after learning about her attempt to influence Ridge into removing Steffi from power. Taylor's protective instincts toward her daughter resurface strongly, especially as she reflects on past betrayals and the fragile balance of power within the company. She reinforces the importance of Steffi holding shares in the company, a safeguard against exactly the kind of maneuver Brooke is now attempting. As history is quietly echoed in memory, the shadow of past betrayals looms large over current events at Forrester Creations. Taylor recalls how Steffi was once blindsided in a devastating scandal involving a manipulated video meant to humiliate Brooke, a situation that spiraled out of control when Ridge mistakenly blamed Steffi and fired her. That moment of injustice ultimately led Taylor to secure Steffi's shares, ensuring she could never be so easily removed again. This memory deepens Taylor's mistrust of Brooke's current actions, reinforcing the idea that history may be dangerously repeating itself. Meanwhile, Brooke pushes forward, urging Hope to fight for co-CEO status, believing she deserves equal standing with Steffi, while ignoring Ridge's firm resistance. Hope becomes increasingly insistent, encouraging Brooke to push harder, framing it as justice rather than ambition, though the underlying desire for control becomes more apparent. On Wednesday, May 20th, as May sweeps reach their conclusion, Katie Logan begins to question her own motives, wondering if her desire to bring Hope closer to the Logan family might be contributing to a looming civil war. A rare moment of warmth emerges when Katie, Hope, Bill Spencer, and Liam Spencer share a heartfelt family interaction, offering a brief emotional pause amid the escalating tensions. Katie expresses genuine concern about keeping peace between her sister Brooke and Hope, fearing that loyalty may come at too high a cost. Meanwhile, Zende and RJ Forrester attempt to set aside their differences for the sake of Forrester creations, though underlying resentment continues to simmer beneath their forced cooperation. Inside the executive offices, Brooke and Steffi come face to face with Ridge caught between them, raising the question of whether diplomacy will prevail or whether Brooke will escalate her demands further. By Thursday, May 21st, emotional sparks ignite as Hope confronts Steffi directly, demanding answers and pushing for clarity about her stalled fashion line. Steffi, already exhausted by repeated pressure, grows increasingly frustrated and warns Hope about crossing boundaries, especially after suspecting she may have influenced Brooke's power play. The confrontation becomes deeply personal as accusations surface, and Steffi makes it clear she believes Hope is behind the attempt to destabilize her leadership. Elsewhere, Electra Forrester is blindsided by a shocking revelation that threatens to unravel her sense of trust and stability, as secrets involving Dylan and Remy edge closer to exposure. The tension escalates further when Charlie, the security guard, potentially uncovers Remy lurking around Forrester Creations, leaving Electra shaken and uncertain about who she can trust. On Friday, May 22nd, uncertainty surrounds Hope Logan's future at Forrester Creations as tensions reach a breaking point. Steffi grows increasingly angered by Brooke's interference and begins to seriously consider whether Hope's presence has become more disruptive than productive. If Hope continues to push boundaries, Steffi may decide that removing her entirely is the only way to restore order within the company. Meanwhile, Will finds himself taking emotional risks of his own, likely confronting feelings for Electra and pushing her to choose between him and RJ Forrester. This emotional triangle adds yet another layer of instability to an already volatile week, where every relationship feels stretched to its limits. As the week of May 25 through May 29 arrives, the fallout begins to take shape with life-changing decisions on the horizon. Hope Logan stands at a crossroads, forced to decide whether to remain at Forrester Creations or walk away entirely if her ambitions continue to be blocked. Zende's future becomes directly tied to her choice, as he may follow her if she leaves, further shifting the creative balance within the company. Electra Forrester continues to reel from shocking revelations, struggling to process betrayal and uncertainty while navigating her complicated romantic choices. Remy, still fixated on reconnecting with Deke Sharp, intensifies his pressure on Dylan, refusing to let go of his agenda. Meanwhile, the long-standing tension between Taylor Hayes and Brooke Logan threatens to erupt once again, reigniting old wounds and resurfacing decades of rivalry and mistrust. RJ remains determined not to lose Electra, even as she is forced to make a definitive choice between him and Will. Deacon Sharp's eventual return looms in the background, suggesting that more emotional chaos is on the way as alliances shift once again. Brooke, still frustrated with Ridge's refusal to support her ambitions, begins searching for alternative ways to achieve what she believes is right for Hope, even if it means bypassing Ridge entirely. As the week closes, familiar faces return, including Hayes Forrester and Charlie the security guard, signaling that even more secrets, confrontations, and emotional upheavals are just beginning to surface inside the world of Forrester Creations. As the aftermath of this turbulent stretch settles over Forrester Creations, the emotional shockwaves continue to spread far beyond the boardroom walls. Nothing feels stable anymore, and even the smallest conversations carry the weight of everything that has been building beneath the surface for weeks. Hope Logan remains at the center of the storm, her future uncertain as every alliance around her begins to shift in unpredictable ways. Brooke Logan, still fueled by frustration and conviction, refuses to accept Ridge's firm stance, and that refusal begins to quietly reshape the power dynamics inside the company. What once felt like controlled corporate disagreement now feels like a personal war where every side believes they are fighting for justice. And as tensions simmer, the question becomes less about who is right and more about who will be forced out when everything finally breaks. Inside Forrester Creations, the emotional divide deepens as employees begin to take sides, even when they try not to. Zende Forrester's uncertainty grows heavier with each passing day, especially as he watches decisions being made that seem to overlook his creative voice. Even when Steffi offers reassurance, it no longer fully reaches him because patience has started to feel like another word for being ignored. RJ Forrester, meanwhile, continues to benefit from visibility that others feel is unfairly distributed, adding silent friction between the younger generation of designers. The creative floor, once driven by inspiration and collaboration, now feels charged with quiet resentment and unspoken competition. Every sketch, every fitting, every approval feels like it carries political weight instead of pure artistic vision. At the same time, the emotional consequences of Brooke and Ridge's ongoing conflict begin to ripple into their personal connection. Ridge stands firm in his decision, but that firmness comes with emotional strain, especially as Brooke's disappointment turns into visible anger. Their relationship, long defined by passion and reconciliation, now feels tested by principles neither is willing to abandon. Brooke sees her fight as one of fairness and recognition for her daughter, while Ridge views it as interference that threatens the stability of his company. Neither side is able to fully understand the other anymore, and that growing distance creates a silence between them that feels heavier than any argument. Even moments of affection, like small gestures meant to soften the tension, begin to lose their power against the larger conflict unfolding. Elsewhere, the younger generation's emotional entanglements continue to spiral, adding another layer of instability to an already fragile environment. Electra Forrester finds herself increasingly overwhelmed as new truths begin to surface, forcing her to question not only her friendships, but her judgment as well. The trust she once relied on feels fractured, and every interaction now carries a hint of uncertainty. Remy Price continues to hover at the edges of her world, insisting on innocence while simultaneously refusing to step away, creating a tension that never fully resolves. Dylan becomes trapped between protecting her peace and managing the emotional consequences of past decisions, especially as Remy's demands grow more manipulative. The situation becomes less about resolution and more about control, as each person tries to define what forgiveness should look like. In parallel, Liam Spencer's concerns about Hope continue to intensify, and his frustration becomes more vocal as the situation at Forrester Creations escalates. He sees the environment she is in as increasingly unstable, almost like a pressure cooker waiting for one final trigger. Bill Spencer, as always, responds with blunt certainty, convinced that Hope's place is not inside the world she is trying so hard to dominate. Katie Logan, however, finds herself caught in the middle, torn between understanding Hope's ambitions and fearing the damage it could cause to her own family. That internal conflict makes her more cautious with every conversation, as if she is walking through a minefield of emotional consequences. Even moments of family unity feel temporary, as though they could shatter again with a single disagreement. As the days move forward, the sense of inevitability grows stronger, as though every character is being pulled toward a breaking point they can no longer avoid. Hope's growing frustration makes her decisions more unpredictable, and her determination begins to blur the line between ambition and desperation. Steffi, equally resolute, becomes less willing to tolerate continued disruption, especially if it threatens the company's stability and leadership structure. What once might have been handled through negotiation now feels like it could end in permanent decisions that cannot be undone. The idea of someone walking away or being forced out no longer feels like speculation, but like an approaching certainty. And with every interaction, the emotional distance between the sides only widens further. By the time the week transitions into its final stretch, the atmosphere inside Forrester Creations feels fundamentally changed, as if everyone is waiting for the moment when words will no longer be enough. Hope stands at a crossroads where every option carries loss, whether it is her position, her pride, or her connection to the people around her. Zende watches closely, aware that whatever choice she makes will inevitably reshape his own future in ways he cannot yet predict. Even those trying to remain neutral are slowly being pulled into the conflict, whether through loyalty, family ties, or simple proximity. And as Brooke continues searching for a path forward that preserves her daughter's place, she edges closer to choices that could deepen the divide even further. In this world of ambition, legacy, and emotional history, nothing remains still for long, and the calm before the next storm is already beginning to disappear. The tension that follows feels less like a continuation of conflict and more like the quiet before a decisive rupture. Inside Forrester Creations, every hallway conversation now carries a cautious edge, as though even casual words might be reported, misinterpreted, or used later in the ongoing power struggle. Hope Logan, still reeling from the pressure surrounding her position, begins to feel increasingly isolated within the very company she is trying to claim as her own. What once looked like determination now carries the undertone of emotional exhaustion as repeated setbacks begin to wear down her confidence. Yet even as doubt creeps in, she refuses to step backward, clinging tightly to the belief that persistence will eventually force change. That refusal becomes both her strength and her most dangerous vulnerability because it keeps her locked directly in the path of Steffi Forrester's authority. Steffi, on the other hand, becomes even more resolute as the situation escalates, interpreting each new push from Brooke and Hope as confirmation that boundaries are being deliberately tested. Her leadership style grows sharper, more decisive, and less forgiving as she tries to prevent what she sees as instability from spreading through the company. To her, this is no longer about personal disagreements. It is about protecting the structure and identity of Forrester Creations itself. Ridge Forrester remains caught in the middle, still emotionally connected to Brooke but professionally aligned with Steffi's decisions, and that divide continues to strain his sense of balance. Every attempt he makes to soften the situation only seems to delay the inevitable confrontation that both sides are heading toward. And with Brooke refusing to accept defeat, Ridge finds himself increasingly positioned as the barrier that neither side is willing to move around. Brooke's frustration evolves into something more complex as she begins searching for alternate paths to achieve what Ridge has refused to allow. The idea of influence becomes central to her thinking as she considers whether other voices within Forrester Creations might be more receptive to her perspective. This shift marks a turning point because it transforms the conflict from a direct disagreement into a wider strategic struggle. Her conversations with Hope grow more intense, fueled by shared disappointment and a mutual sense that they are being unfairly restricted. Hope, encouraged by her mother's determination, becomes more vocal in demanding change, even when the response around her grows colder. The line between support and escalation begins to blur, and what was once a shared family ambition now feels like a coordinated push against established authority. Meanwhile, the younger generation continues to unravel under the pressure of overlapping emotional conflicts. Electra Forrester finds herself unable to fully trust the stability of any relationship around her as revelations and suspicions continue to surface without warning. The presence of Remy Price only intensifies that uncertainty, as his refusal to fully disappear from her orbit creates a lingering sense of discomfort. Dylan's involvement adds another layer of emotional complexity, especially as she tries to maintain control over a situation that feels increasingly unpredictable. Each interaction becomes charged with hesitation, as if everyone involved is waiting for the next hidden truth to emerge. And with trust already fractured, even small misunderstandings threaten to escalate far beyond their original intent. Zenda Forrester's internal struggle deepens further as he watches the company he has always considered his creative home shift into something unfamiliar. His frustration is no longer just about recognition, but about belonging, as he begins to question where he truly fits within the evolving structure of Forrester Creations. R.J. Forrester's rising visibility only intensifies that feeling, creating a quiet but persistent emotional tension between legacy and opportunity. Even when professional collaboration is required, personal frustration is never far beneath the surface. Steffi's reassurances begin to feel increasingly distant as Zende realizes that promises of future opportunity do not ease present frustration. That realization pushes him closer to a point where his loyalty may no longer feel guaranteed. As everything converges, Katie Logan continues to wrestle with her conscience, torn between protecting family harmony and acknowledging the consequences of unchecked ambition. Her conversations become more reflective as she tries to determine whether supporting Hope's ambitions is an act of loyalty or the beginning of deeper conflict within the Logan family. Bill Spencer remains firm in his belief that Forrester Creations is not a safe environment for Hope, reinforcing his long-standing skepticism of the company's internal dynamics. Liam Spencer, meanwhile, grows increasingly convinced that the situation is heading toward a breaking point that cannot be easily repaired. His concern is not just professional, but deeply personal, as he watches Hope become more entangled in a struggle that is slowly reshaping her entire future. And with every passing day, the sense that something irreversible is approaching becomes harder to ignore. By the time this chapter of conflict reaches its emotional peak, no character is standing on stable ground anymore. Hope is caught between ambition and exhaustion, Brooke between love and escalation, Ridge between loyalty and responsibility, and Steffi between control and protection of her company. Even those attempting to stay outside the conflict find themselves pulled into its orbit, unable to remain neutral as tensions intensify. Every relationship feels tested, every alliance feels temporary, and every decision feels like it could permanently alter the balance of power. And as Forrester Creations stands at the center of it all, the only certainty left is that whatever comes next will not leave anything unchanged.